Hi all, and thank you for tuning in to the official first episode of the Global Sport Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Mike Barilaro, and for our first episode, we will be tapping into the NRL preliminary finals from the weekend gone by and some of the controversies that come out of that. A quick preview of the NRL Grand Final, best time of the year. A quick discussion about the NFL's results over the weekend, some English Premier League talk, and the UFC happening this weekend. So, let's go.
That goes fast like ocean waves. That can thrill the fluid veins. Choirs lift us high, then crash. Triumphant cries through sacred chains. Beneath the lights we conquer. Feel the dreams are ground of strife. Heroes born from sweat and grit. Forever chance through endless life. We are the raging hearts in stadiums pulse alive. Under neon glare defiant, this fever we thrive. Cold wind, biting whispers, victory within our grasp.
Hi guys, now before we get into our first topic being the NRL preliminary finals, just a quick reminder that this is a platform where I'm encouraging debate, I'm encouraging questions from my viewers, from my listeners. All they have to do is send an email to mike@globalsportfanatics.com or hit me up on any of my socials. If the topic is interesting, I'll give you a shout out online and I'll give you my opinions on the matter. Pretty simple. Okay? Now, into the first preliminary final, the Storm versus the Roosters. I actually thought the Roosters were a sneaky chance in this one, but the Storm are just so dominant. They're such a great franchise. I don't know how they keep doing it. Craig Bellamy, he's making a case as being potentially the greatest coach of all time. It's hard to debate that. I understand they had the salary cap issues back in the mid-millennia there, but he hasn't missed a finals series ever since 2003. Yes, I am including those years where they lost those points and the salary cap debacle, but he's never missed a final series. I think he's made the top 15 or 16 seasons since he's been in charge. He's a remarkable coach. He's changed the game. He's completely innovated the game on numerous occasions, not just for one time. They were such a different team when they started in 2003, the 2008, 2009 compared to what they are now. But despite that, they had this remarkable spine. Jerome Hughes, such a good player. He's turned into an absolute elite halfback. But with this spine, Cameron Munster's missed, 3/4 of the year? Ryan Pappenhausen's missed at least half the year, at least. Harry Grant's missed some football. He was out for the Origin series. How they've maintained it. Oh, well, Wishart's a fantastic utility. He's been great. He's just filled in the holes everywhere you've gone. But I don't understand when I look at the rest of that squad, they are just a system that works. I can't see anything changing for the Melbourne Storm in the near future. They are an absolute machine. Now, the Roosters, you look at their lineup and you just go, their back line is huge. Star-studded. Joey Manu, Joseph Swaliti, Dominic Young, as quick a player as there is in the NRL. You've got James Tedesco, who's one of the great players of all time, and Daniel Tupou, Mr. Consistency. He's been there for how long now? They're all over 6'5", except for James Tedesco. Big, hulking, speedy. I thought they could get the job done. Now, when you have a back line like that, you would think, well, you've got to compromise somewhere. Maybe the forwards aren't as good, and then you look at their forward pack. You've got Angus Crichton, you've got Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, you've got Lindsay Collins, who got knocked out, but we'll talk about that at a different time. But you've got Lindsay Collins, you've got Victor Radley. You lose Brandon Smith, and you bring in Connor Watson, who debuted in Origin this year. I mean, they're a star-studded team. You've got a bench of Nat Butcher, Tyrell May, Spencer Leniu. These are Origin players. I thought they were a smoky chance, but you know what? Their defense all year has just been... It hasn't been good enough. It certainly isn't what you would think about the Roosters, especially in the last 5-6 years. The defense hasn't been good enough. And my concern with the Roosters was you have to practice what you preach week in and week out. You can't just turn on your defense when you get to the finals. They were winning games against the Dolphins, conceding 34 points. There's numerous other occasions where they were conceding high points. They were still winning the games based on their remarkable attack. But you've just got to do better defensively. And I just don't think they did enough. When they came to that first game against the Panthers in the finals, they just got obliterated. I know they made a fight back in the second half, and there was a bit of controversy around the forward pass, but there's no doubt who the better team was. The Panthers absolutely smacked them off the park, and just defensively, they just fell to bits. They lost the ruck. They couldn't control what was happening at the B marker spot. Panthers were just making it look so simple. And you look at that and you think, well, they probably don't deserve to get to the preliminary finals. They came up against Manly. They got the job done. I understand that. That was a game where Manly just didn't put enough pressure, particularly at the ruck. They lost complete control of the ruck. They lost Kohler straight away. That wasn't a good idea. And then obviously losing Jake Trbojevic pretty soon after. They just weren't able to regain that momentum because it was such a tense physical start. It just took so much out of Manly. You just got the feeling once the Roosters scored that first try, which took a while to come, but once they scored that first try, it was just all over Red Rover. The Roosters went on, and that's what the Roosters can do. They get a sniff and they can just destroy you. There was an element of that against the Melbourne Storm too. The Melbourne Storm, clearly the best team, but the Roosters went bang, bang in the second half, and all of a sudden, 24-6, the game looked over. Now you're looking at 24-18. And this is where the controversy comes in, because if you look at the next chain of events, the Roosters actually almost scored. And that would have made it 24-22 with the kick to come. Swaliti has proven himself to be an elite goal kicker in the last 6 to 8 weeks. That could have been 24 all in a blink of an eye. On the next set, the Storm go down they go down the length of the field. They put a bomb up. How on earth the referee missed the McDonald knock-on into, I believe it was Katoa. I will stand corrected if it wasn't. It might have been Sean Bloor. I think it was Katoa, actually. But the knock-on off the kick, it was a double knock-on either way. Melbourne would have got the ball back. But it comes off Tupou. Then there's a contest for the ball between McDonald and I'm not sure if it was Angus Crichton. I can't remember who the back row was. Pretty sure it was Angus Crichton. Clear as day, straight off him into Katoa. And Grant Atkins has called sixth again. It just raises the question, how far down this rabbit hole do we go? Can the bunker look at that? Because as soon as King got tackled, you couldn't go back and check the bunker anymore. Now, Jerome Hughes scores off the next play. Sure, the Roosters could have defended it, and they didn't. But it shouldn't have got to that point. And look, I don't want to see the plays stopped. I don't want to see referees going back 4 or 5 plays. But I mean, at the end of the day, the right decision is the right decision. And I just don't know if we have a balance right. And I just wonder if it's one of those things where you can go back and check something in a set when a try is scored. You can't call it for every set, but do we just let it go? If the referee misses it, do we let it go? Look, I'm okay with it. I just think with all the technology we have with the bunker, we use it so much and they get it wrong so much. I don't know why we can't go back one play and check that. But look, I don't know if that's a great idea. It's just something the NRL needs to consider because that effectively won the game. At that point, it was game, set, match. If the Roosters got it back to 24 all then we're talking about a whole different scenario. But then again, you then go to the Roosters' defense all year, and this is where they've let themselves down. It got to 30 points to 18, and they just didn't have the steel to go on with the job. And the Melbourne Storm, another level. They gave them a little bit of an opportunity. The Roosters almost took it. Once the Melbourne Storm took that back, and they got that momentum, my goodness, they just finished it off. And it's brilliant to watch. Harry Grant scored a hat-trick in the first week of the finals. Jerome Hughes scores a hat-trick. Ryan Pappenhausen scores 2 tries. Cameron Munster scores 2 tries. It's almost like they're doing it for fun. The spine is just choosing who's going to score tries. At the end, it was this beautiful moment where the commentary was saying, Cameron Munster is going to do something here. Cameron Munster is going to take this on. He wants another try. And he just gets the ball one off the ruck and just goes straight under the post for 48-18. He's a marvellous player. It's going to be an hellacious grand final on Sunday night. They're going in as favourites. They probably deserve to go in as favourite to some extent because there's a little bit of a query around Nathan Cleary's shoulder. But look, Craig Bellamy is on the cusp of a remarkable achievement. The Storm have every chance. But the team they have to beat is the Penrith Panthers. So let's talk about the Penrith Panthers Sharks. Look, that game pretty much went as I expected. In my ad-lib first episode of the Global Sport Fanatics podcast, not the official one, just one I ad-libbed in my backyard. I picked Penrith 22-6. They've ended up winning 26-6. The way the game panned out, pretty much what I anticipated. Penrith always looked in control. They weren't ever going to blast Cronulla off the field on the scoreboard. They don't tend to do that, the Penrith Panthers. They tend to just want to win the game in the 79th minute, and they're rugged, and they just do the hard yard. They work out of the backfield through their backs. They run it up to the forwards. They play field position, and once they spend enough time in your 50, they just give the ball to Nathan Cleary, and from that point on, the rest is history. They're a well-oiled machine. There's nothing about the preliminary final that suggests that they can't go on and win an unbelievable fourth straight title in a cap era. Later on in one of these episodes, we're going to discuss who the greatest team of all time is. The Penrith Panthers have to be in that discussion when you consider what they're doing in a cap era. But that's neither here nor there for now. We will get into that in a later date. But the Penrith Panthers and the Cronulla Sharks, I thought it was a really good game. And I thought the Sharks actually stood up. They probably proved that they were genuinely a top 4 team this year. They were good. They were stubborn. They kept turning the Panthers away. The Panthers looked a little clunky in their attack. They're a little bit disjointed because Nathan Cleary's missed a lot of football recently. I know that they've been together for so many years, but it is about repetition, week in, week in, week in. And look, they were a little bit clunky, but if you want to talk about the greatness of the Penrith Panthers, this is why they're going to be so hard to beat on Sunday. And this is why they might be very hard to beat years coming up. Look, I've got a feeling the dynasty might come to an end next year when you look at the players that they've lost. Jerome Luai, James Fisher-Harris, and Sunia Taruva, on top of everyone they've lost, might just be the tipping point. Particularly with James Fisher-Harris moving on. It might just be enough to bring Penrith a little bit back to earth for the 2025 season. But at the moment, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that they're in a 5th straight grand final, going for a 4th straight title, and Nathan Cleary potentially going for a 3rd Clive Churchill medal, which is this is remarkable. This is stuff that we've never seen in our lifetime. But what makes Penrith Panthers so remarkable, there was a part of the game where the Penrith weren't doing much with the ball. They were up 10-2. They weren't putting the Sharks away. But then they got it together, put a beautiful sweep play onto the left, and then the bunker got involved. A terrible call. I can't believe they're even talking about finding Ivan Cleary for it. It was a disgraceful call. Talakai, he saw the play unfolding, clearly changes his view and goes, I'm going to run straight at Luke Garner, and I'm going to make this look like an obstruction. Even with that, Luke Garner still ended up on his inside shoulder. So I can't believe Chris Butler made the decision that he did. But it was a terrific play. It should have been allowed, but it was disallowed. It stayed 10-2. But then what happened in back-to-back sets, Luke Garner takes out Tom Hazelton. That's a fair penalty. It wasn't much in it, but he did get him in the back. And then straight after that, another penalty where Tommy Hazelton, biggest guy on the field, completely loses his legs. He didn't just slip. He completely went head over apex. And poor old Mitch Kenny is just there with his, I think it was his left arm, and it was just there a few inches off the ground, makes slight contact with the head. Tommy Hazelton stood down. I'm not saying he didn't really get him, but there's nothing Mitch Kenny could do. The guy's just slipped. And they've given another penalty. And I'm sitting there going, what is going on? Because disallowed the try, soft penalty against Luke Garner, but fair enough. And now this one, I'm thinking, if Cronulla score here, things might start to get really interesting because this could be the end of the dynasty. Cronulla could sneak away with a victory if they can take advantage of this. And sure enough, Cronulla's main strength is stripping the edges for numbers. And they got Katoa over. How he got that ball down, I don't know, but he seems to do it all the time. He is an absolute freak. All of a sudden, they're looking at a 10-6 ball game, and you're thinking 23 minutes to go. This can get really interesting. But then what makes Penrith so great is the handling of that little 5-6 minute part of it, the 5 or 6 minute adversity there where they weren't playing that well, disallowed a try, a fair try, gave away back-to-back penalties, one that shouldn't have been given, then they concede. Many other teams may have crumbled, but within 2 or 3 minutes, they finally get back up into the red zone. And this is where you've got to start talking about Cleary as well. The play he put on at that moment, when you try to sum up the current situation at the time, 10-6, things were starting to get dicey for the Panthers, weren't playing that well. It was a little bit wet, a little bit of rain was around, and Nathan Cleary gets the ball. He's on the 3rd tackle. Now, most other ball players in that situation, in that high-pressure environment, I don't think they do what Nathan Cleary did. Nathan Cleary gets the ball, looks up, sees Brian To'o unmarked and just kicks it. Doesn't even think about it. Just kicks it. Yeah, he's open. I'm kicking it. That's extraordinary. Under those circumstances, this is a round 10. This is a preliminary final. Now, when you sum up how much that could have gone wrong, third tackle, so they hadn't taken advantage of the full set. We all know about the 7 tackle rule, which I'm vehemently against, and that's a topic for another discussion. But that could have gone wrong. It could have gone dead. It could have been a 7 tackle set. If he got the trajectory wrong, this is what no one's talking about. When he kicks it over there, Brian To'o is completely isolated. Now he's got what's his name? Isaac Tungle inside, but there was a big distance between Isaac Tungle and Brian To'o. Now, if Cleary doesn't hit the ball right, which he rarely misses, but if he doesn't get it right, if he got Ronaldo Mulatalo on the full, Ronaldo Mulatalo is as fast as anyone in the game. He would have been one-on-one with Brian To'o. If he got past him, he was into the backfield. There was no one in that Penrith lineup running him down. I guarantee it. If he got that kick wrong and Ronaldo Mulatalo got the ball in the full, it would have been 12-10 to the Sharks and all the momentum having just scored 3-4 minutes earlier. So there were the two scenarios. The fact that it was a third tackle, the kick could have gone straight to Ronaldo Mulatalo or it could have gone dead for a 7 tackle set. None of that mattered. The majority of ball players, I think that would have made them hesitate and not do what Cleary did. But the man is just so experienced. Man, he's a kid. He's 26. It's really scary what's happening with this kid. But he was such a clear mind. He just looked up, kicked it, didn't think about any of the potential consequences. And someone like that, it is so hard to beat a team when that guy's leading them. Because Penrith haven't just won 3 grand finals in a row, but the situational football side of things. There have been so many different types of situations over the years. You know, they had to go through a hellacious run to get to the 2021 grand final because they lost the Souths. They then went to war with Parramatta in week 2. They were leading 8-6 at half time, and they managed to keep the score at 8-6 till full time. Against a local rivalry, that was no mean feat. And it looked like it completely drained them. And then they had to take on this ridiculously dominant Melbourne Storm team, who I think at the time were 1 loss from their last 22 games. It was something like that. Dominant premiership favourite, dominant minor premiers, and hadn't lost at Suncorp for I don't know how many years at that point. Because of COVID, they had to play it at Suncorp. Penrith had to go there and beat that. And they did. And I think it was only 1 try apiece. The score finished 10 points to 4. And I'm happy to be fact-checked on this, but I'm pretty sure Penrith scored 1 try and 2 penalty goals. That's how they made their 10 points. That was enough. If you were told before the game that's all they were going to accrue going up against that team, I would have said, nah, Penrith's going to get knocked out at a prelim again. Well, no, they didn't. That was enough. And having gone through that, they then had to get their energy levels up again to go up against South Sydney, who were a lot more fresh because they had the week off going into the prelim, absolutely belted Manly. Fresh as one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach of all time, in Wayne Bennett. That was a tough scenario to deal with, particularly because Penrith at that point, they weren't prolific premiership winners as they are now. The last time they were in a grand final, they lost it the year before. They were down 26-0 against Melbourne. They did fantastic to come back, but they still lost. And there would have been a few demons there. To then lose the South, have to go through hell to get to the grand final, and then coming up against Wayne Bennett, I thought this is going to show a tremendous amount of character to get this win. And they did. And it was a great grand final. And they won 14-12, and it was tight, and it was tense. And that was an amazing experience as a neutral fan, and an amazing experience for the Penrith Panthers. But then they come back the next year and forget it. I don't think any team in any era touches the Penrith Panthers. They get to the grand final, 28-12. Parramatta shouldn't have even shown up. It was an absolute slaughterfest. Then they get to the grand final the next year against the Brisbane Broncos. Some saying the baby Brisbane Broncos. And they're down by 16 with 15 minutes to go. And they still find a way out of it. Yeah, and this is a team that just... adversity, they have been in so many different situations, and situational football is such an underrated thing because it's very hard to prepare for. It's very hard to prepare for those kind of situations. The only way to deal with them, you have to get into them, and you have to deal with it when it happens. And the Penrith Panthers, there's no way they would have ever dealt with a situation where they were 28-0 up in a grand final. They wouldn't have ever dealt with a situation where they were down by 16 with 15 minutes to go. That's not how you prepare for a grand final. It's just a situation that you have to handle when it happens. At that point, it's nothing about Ivan Cleary. It's nothing about any coaching staff. The players have to handle it. Nathan Cleary has been involved. He is the main benefit in all of these. He's been involved in all of them. And as a result, no matter what situation you put in front of him, he understands how to handle it. And the Sharks put the acid test on him at 10-6. And Nathan Cleary just went, nah, bang, crash, go for a rest champ. And then Jerome Luai at the end, a little dink in 26-6. But he didn't just beat the Sharks. He tore up the shreds. He set up that try, and then he absolutely game managed them back into the red zone, set up the next try for Alamotti, and they're just too good. They're absolutely too good. If any team can beat them, it is the Melbourne Storm, because when you look at that spine and when you look at that coach, they're the only team that has probably been in a lot of those kind of situations over the years, whether it's Origin, international games, finals, grand finals. This is the spine that won the grand final with the exception of Harry Grant. Cameron Smith was obviously there in 2020, but Harry Grant's the current Australian incumbent dummy half. So you're talking serious quality. And by the way, he's in seriously good form, career best form, if you ask me. So if there's any team that can beat them based on that, on situational football, it is the Melbourne Storm. And that's why I'm very happy we got the right grand final. As a neutral, I'm going to the grand final. I'm happy to go buy my tickets. I've spent hundreds of dollars for myself and my partner to go. I think it's going to be an awesome event. Why would I not want to be there? I usually try to get out to the grand final, but obviously if it's an absolute bludger, if it's something I just don't want to see, I'm not going to bother. But Storm, Panthers, no, I've got to be there for that one. I was there last year. That's going to go down as arguably the greatest grand final ever. The one that I always refer to, the Broncos-Cowboys grand final. That was one I had a feeling I had to get there, and I was completely, when I got there, it was, that's the best game of all time. That is the best game of all time. I'm not sure whether last year's grand final rivals it, but it's close. But if you ever have doubts about whether you should go to a grand final, do yourself a favour. It's once a year. Just get out and get them. It's not like the AFL grand final where the tickets are almost impossible to get from months in advance. You can go online right now, get a grand final ticket. I don't think you want to miss this one, okay? So that's my thought on the preview. I'm going to say this is going to be tough. This is really tough. I'm going to go Panthers. I don't know whether they can win 5 straight, but with Jerome Luai and James Fisher-Harris, Sunia Taruba, I'm going to go Panthers 18, Storm 10. I think the Panthers can restrict Melbourne to 2 tries. I'm thinking at some point they're going to want to try to expose the mismatch of Xavier Coates and Brian To'o in the air if they can get close to that red zone. I know Brian To'o is a very underrated winger in the air, but Xavier Coates is the best in the competition. I can see Cameron Munster, who loves to kick to the left, I can see him trying to take advantage of that mismatch. Nick Meaney is horrible from that side of the field. I don't know why, because as a rightful kicker, the left-hand side of the field should be your natural swing. He's a far better kicker from the left-hand side of the field. So I'm going to say Xavier Coates is going to score a try in the air. Nick Meaney is going to miss the goal. They will score another try during the game. They will get 10 points. I can see the Panthers scoring 3 tries. I think they can win the grand final with 3 tries. Melbourne's defense is a little bit more suspect. They can relinquish points in bunches. They did that last week against the Roosters. They can do that. They're not as solid as the Penrith Panthers. Defense wins premierships. The Panthers are still the best defensive unit in the NRL. I'm going to go to Panthers 18-10. I think they're going to win a 4th straight title. It would not surprise me if I'm way off the mark because the Storm are an extraordinary lineup. But I'm going to go to the Panthers 18-10. The only concern for me is why the betting has the Melbourne Storm as currently a $1.83 favourite, even taking into account the Nelson Asafa Solomona sin bin, because when you try to frame the markets, Panthers would have always had a lot of money on them, absolutely. Probably should have had more money with the betting agencies of the Melbourne Storm. But essentially, this is a home grand final. It's in Sydney. Melbourne are going to have trouble. The Penrith Panthers are going for 4 straight titles. They know how to get it done. Nathan Cleary is going to play. The fact that the Melbourne Storm started at $1.92 with the Panthers, even money at the beginning of the week, and the money's come from them. They're now sitting as a $1.83 favourite. The bookie's trying to let you get on at the Panthers at $2. That worries me. If you're picking the Panthers, if you're a supporter of the Panthers, that's a little concerning because the silly money would say just put $100,000 on the Panthers and just double your money. I don't have $100,000, but that's where the silly bets could go. an opportunity to double your money on the Penrith Panthers in a grand final, that's extraordinary to me. I don't care how good the Melbourne Storm are. That is extraordinary. The Panthers have done nothing in terms of their form to discredit why they're there. They're going in with great form. I think they're going as good as the Melbourne Storm, if not better. As a Penrith fan, I wouldn't be concerned about Nathan Cleary's shoulder if that's how the betting markets have been framed. So hopefully there is nothing wrong. I just believe if he gets through the 80 minutes, I think he wins the grand final. So I'm going to go Penrith 18-10. We'll see how close we go. So that is my preview of the grand final. So let's get on to the next topic. Now, guys, just to finish off my preview of the grand finals, one very controversial element of the grand final has reared its ugly head again. This is becoming very annoying as it's happened too many times. Nelson Asofa-Solomona. Not saying I'm his biggest fan, but the grand final is poorer for not having him in it. I understand we need to set a precedent. We need to keep players healthy. I just don't understand looking at that tackle. The amount of times I've looked at it, I understand that contact to the head, it did happen. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm sure he's very sorry, but there was nothing intentional about it. Nothing intentional about it. There was no swinging arm. He didn't lean. All he did was just tackle with his shoulder like you're trained to do from the time you're 6 years old. He's 6'7". And if you look at the initial impact, so I'm pretty sure it was Katoa that makes contact with Lindsay Collins' midriff, which actually dips Lindsay Collins into the 6'7" shoulder of Nelson Asofa-Solomona. There was just no intention whatsoever. He's just moved in, made a tackle. Unfortunately, these things happen. Why are we rubbing players out of the biggest games for accidental contacts, careless contacts? It's happened too often. It happened with Cameron Smith. I still can't get over when he missed 2 games for a bit of a lasso around the head of Sam Thaiday. Now, if anyone's trying to tackle someone as strong as Sam Thaiday, he's running one way, inertia is going the other. And Cameron Smith was trying to hold on to the guy, and then he just lassos him accidentally. Didn't hurt him. Sam Thaiday didn't go down. He gave him a bit of push and shove. The game went on. It was a classic game. It's two games. Missed the prelim. Missed the grand final. It's just too high a price. The NRL has a serious issue with their judicial system. I know they're trying to get away from loading and all that kind of stuff, and I think they've successfully done that this year. I'm happy to be fact-checked on that. I'm pretty sure they've changed a lot of their precedents, but I'm pretty sure that they can come up with a much better scenario. And I've advertised for this. I've tried to email people and I've tried to get people to listen. Look, this is a platform where recently, as a result of some other factors in the game, I've been able to make a little bit of contact with some media people. I would like to say what I'm about to say regarding the judicial process, and maybe if anyone's out there, they want to hit me up at mike@globalsportfanatics.com or hit me up on my socials. If they don't agree with what I'm saying, or if they want to refine what I'm saying, or if they have any other ideas, I would love to give these ideas to these people to see if they can give it up to higher powers in the NRL, because the judicial process, it doesn't work. And let me just try to explain this. Nelson Asofa-Solomona has copped initially a 4-week suspension for a careless tackle. A careless tackle. Nothing intentional. And having played rugby league all my life up until I destroyed my Achilles tendon when I was 17 years old, if you want to hurt someone intentionally, it is almost impossible to do that and make it look like an accident. I don't care what anyone says, because you can't afford to miss. If you want to take someone out of a game, you can't afford to miss. So making it look accidental, all of a sudden you're just going to get yourself in trouble. You might get yourself sent in, sent off, put on report for nothing, and then the player continues to play. If you want to take someone out of a game, it's going to look intentional. Now, if Nelson Asofa-Solomona wanted to intentionally take Lindsay Collins out of a game, he would have raised his elbow, he would have raised his forearm, he might have ducked his head in. You would have seen him go down from the knees and lift up into the tackle, up into his jaw. None of that happened. None of that happened. And what I'm about to say now what I'm about to say now regarding the judicial process and what I believe should happen, it won't have anything to do with something that would be referred straight to a judiciary or something that's considered reckless, okay? But this is how I would do it, all right? I would do tiers for trade. So essentially, I would assign the biggest games on the NRL calendar to a certain amount of regular season games. Now, this is very important because not all suspensions are created equal unless you assign them just to regular season games. That actually would level out the process. But I would do every big game and assign them to a certain tier. So the way I would do it, grand final, 4 regular season games. State of origin, 3 regular season games. And then your finals and your international contests would be worth 2 regular season games. And then it's essentially mathematics, right? So if you get a suspension, you owe the NRL whatever they say you owe. You owe them. That's banked in their system. You now owe them that suspension based on regular season games. That makes it fair for everyone, right? Now, obviously, it would be the next possible regular season game where you would serve that suspension. But if we're in the finals, the biggest parts of the year, I don't know what the issue is if we roll it over to the next year. I don't understand why we have to suspend these players for that final series. I just don't understand it. Let's look at this Nelson Asafa-Solomona, Lindsay Collins incident. If it happened in round 6, and Nelson Asafa-Solomona got a 4-game ban, he fights it. He gets a 5-game ban as a result of losing. He now misses rounds 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now let's look at what's the current situation. It hasn't taken into account the importance of the games. Nelson Asafa-Solomona is an absolute walk-up starter for the New Zealand team in the Tri-Nation Series at the end of the year between Tonga and Australia. Okay? So Nelson Asafa-Solomona, 5-game suspension. The way it's currently done, he is going to miss a grand final, a Tonga international test, an Australian international test, a probable Tri-Nations final, and the opening week of next year's premiership in 2025. On top of having conceded a penalty, on top of having been sent to the sin bin, on top of the Roosters getting an 8-point advantage as a result of the Melbourne Storm being down by 12, it's just too high a price. So I would like to see them put in some sort of a protocol where you could trade off an amount of regular season games to basically mean that you can still play in these big games, but you still owe those games to the NRL. So if you look at the current situation, Nelson Asafa-Solomona has a 5-game suspension, and then a grand final is worth 4 games. Now, Craig Bellamy could come out and say, listen, I can cover you for the grand final. So take your suspension now, but then you don't owe any other weeks. So you come into the 2025 season, you can start from round 1, and you can play in the Tri-Nation Series coming up. So you have that option to you, but I think the majority of players would then take the suspensions in the regular season game, which would be just common sense. But this is the 2 ways you could do it. If you were suspended for 5 games over this current period, then the way you could do it, there's 2 options. 1, you play the grand final, you play the Tri-Nations, and you miss the first 5 games of the regular season next year, which is still a pretty hefty penalty based on what I saw. Or you can say, okay, I'm going to play the grand final. We're going to miss the Tonga game. We're going to miss the first Australian test. Because they're worth 2 games each, that wipes out 4 games of the suspension. I now owe the NRL 1 game, which means I will miss the Tonga International, the Australian International, and I'll miss the first game of the 2025 campaign. But I get to play in the Tri-Nations final. So you've got your best players playing in the grand final, playing in the Tri-Nations final, still serving his suspension, which I still think is incredibly over the top, but he still serves it. Do you know what I mean? If you were to do it in a state of origin scenario, if someone gets suspended for 2 weeks leading into their potential debut state of origin game, a state of origin game is going to be worth 3 games. You shouldn't have to miss a state of origin game. So you still get selected, you go out there, you play your origin game, you miss the next 2 regular season games, and that's the end of the suspension. These games are just too hard to qualify for. They're too hard. If you get your origin jersey, it is such an honour. You get the Australian jersey, it's such an honour. Nelson Asafa-Solomona, he doesn't even get the origin jersey. So the New Zealand jersey, that's the pinnacle of his career. And we're just going to take it away from him. Despite the fact that if you were to serve the suspension in the regular season, it's still worth the same amount of weeks. That makes no sense. You get 24 games a year in the regular season. Only 2 teams get a grand final. You're very unlikely to get an origin jumper. You're rarely going to play international games. You're lucky if you play finals. But you get 24 regular games a year. Because everyone gets 24 regular games, let's make it fair. and allow everyone to take advantage of that. Well, I don't want to see Isaac Luke missing a grand final. South Sydney, he missed the grand final. They hadn't made a grand final in 43 years. And because of a lifting tackle that was pretty good until it went a little bit perpendicular, now let's run me out for the grand final. He never played another grand final. And he missed South Sydney's one grand final in how long, and they won it. And he wasn't there. Appy did a wonderful job, but Isaac Luke deserved a chance to play in that grand final. Luke Rickinson missed the grand final for a similar tackle. Why are we missing grand finals for this kind of stuff? Now, if you're retiring, then just cop a hefty fine. But don't miss grand finals. The fans want to see the best players play. Regardless, we want to see the best players play. Now, if it gets to reckless, that's different. So if it gets to reckless, then the NRL says, well, the player doesn't get a say, the coaching or the club doesn't get a say. But if it's reckless, we can ascertain that if you're going to miss, like if we're going to give you a 4-week suspension and the grand final is coming up, okay, you are going to miss the grand final. But because you're missing the grand final, you don't have to serve any further weeks. That's if it's reckless. It should be taken out of the club's hands. If it's careless, the player and the club should get a say how they use those allocated tiers. If it's reckless, the NRL should be able to say, no, you are going to miss those big games, but as a result, you're not going to miss any further games. If it gets referred straight to the judiciary, all bets are off. That supersedes everything. I totally understand it. So they're the 3 tiers how I would break it down. If it's careless, allow the players to utilize the regular season to serve their suspension or different ways of how to do it in terms of sort of like a banking system. If it's reckless, the NRL gets to say, you don't get a say about which games you miss, but if you get a 4-game or a 3-game suspension, we will utilize or we will take into account the importance of the game you're going to miss, and we won't put further suspensions on you or further sanctions. If it's referred straight to the judiciary, all bets are off. So that's my take on it. So my opinion, Nelson Asofa-Solomona should be playing. I would have loved to have seen Asofa-Solomona take on James Fisher-Harris in the grand final. We've been robbed of that for absolutely nothing. But yeah, a penalty, a sin bin, a grand final, a Tongan international match, an Australian international match, a possible Tri-Nations match, and the first game of the 2025 campaign. You cannot possibly tell me for that careless tackle that is a fair price to pay. So NRL, wake up, get it fixed. Here we go.
Cold wind, fighting whispers, victory within our grasp.
Okay, guys, so now on to the UFC. So as if Sunday wasn't good enough already, you've got the State Cup final that's around about, I believe it's around about 1:30 in the afternoon. You've got the NRLW grand final between the Cronulla Sharks and the Sydney Roosters, happening around about 3:40, 3:55, 4 o'clock. Right in between that, if you've got KO, if you get onto main event, you've got the UFC bout between Alex Pereira and Khalil Roundtree Jr. Look, I don't know how enticing this battle is. I think it's a pretty one-sided battle. The betting will certainly say that. The betting is around about $1.18 to $4.75. A heavy favourite, Alex Pereira. I don't see Alex Pereira losing this fight, particularly to someone who fights a similar style. Roundtree is a Muay Thai style fighter. I think Alex Pereira wins. He's got him like 8 centimeters in reach. He's got him on like 7 centimeters in height, something like that. I don't think he loses this fight. However, this is a real danger fight. Alex Pereira, I think he could have taken on better opponents. I feel like it's a guaranteed win. They're the ones we have to worry about. I think he wins. I think he wins knockout, but he's got to be careful. Roundtree can fight. And we do not want to see Alex Pereira lose this fight. The fight that's going to be heard around the world, if it ever happens, is going to be Du Plessis versus Alex Pereira. Now, there's been talk about Alex Pereira coming down to 185 pounds for that fight. I don't want to see that. I want to see Alex Pereira stay at 205. And when I look at Du Plessis, he's becoming so much bigger in his body. His muscles have grown. He looks like he's now struggling to maintain weight at 185. And I believe he may have mentioned that in his latest interview, how much of a challenge it was for him to stay down at that weight when he took on Israel Adesanya. But I would love to see Du Plessis, who I feel is naturally started to become a heavier fighter, to go up into the 205 division. That is an enthralling fight. I really believe that Alex Pereira would have a lot of trouble against Du Plessis. I'm not picking I don't want to pick Du Plessis, but at the end of the day, you've got to make a case for him. You know, everyone thought Adesanya was going to win. I didn't. I thought Du Plessis was hands down going to win in Perth. And he did. And he won by knockout. He won by submission. But the point is, he didn't go the distance. Alex Pereira is a quality fighter. He's been knocked out by Israel Adesanya before, but he did go down to Adesanya's weight, which is obviously where you don't want to be. But at 205, if Duplessis can go up in weight, I think that is going to be the biggest fight the UFC's ever put up. Forget anything Conor McGregor's ever done. Forget anything John Jones has ever done. If that happens, Duplessis going up against Alex Pereira is going to be the fight for all time. However, it doesn't mean much if Alex Pereira can't get this victory. So, look, I am going to go to the grand final. However, I have downloaded it on Main Event. I'll watch it on my phone in the stands in between the state final and the NRLW. I'm hoping Alex Pereira wins. I really don't want to see Roundtree win this fight. But Alex Pereira, if he underestimates him, there could be some trouble. And we've seen this before, particularly in boxing recently. Sometimes fights don't go quite the way they've planned. We saw Daniel Dubois, who, by the way, was sensational against Anthony Joshua. But this idea that Anthony Joshua was going to have all these big fights lined up, potentially going to fight against Tyson Fury, if Tyson Fury was able to fight or able to beat Usyk, which I don't think he will, this is something we can discuss on other episodes. But Dubois has come in and he's just made all that not happen now. Anthony Joshua, I don't think anyone wants to see him fight anymore. He was absolutely smashed in that fight. So we just got to be careful. Alex Pereira, he's in form. I don't think what happened to Anthony Joshua is going to happen. And obviously, they're different sports. One's MMA, one's boxing. So that's neither here nor there. Alex Pereira must win this fight, regardless of the fact of how much of a favorite he is. He must win it. It's a danger fight, but if he sticks to his strengths, he should be able to get the job done. I can't see a Muay Thai fighter defeating Alex Pereira, who's a very, very gifted kickboxer. So I think he gets the job done. But this Sunday, October 6th, right in between the first two grand finals on the day. What a day. State Cup final, Alex Pereira versus Roundtree, NRLW grand final, into the Storm versus the Panthers. If you're not going to be there live, get on a couch and do not move. And that is all I have to say about that. So let's get on to the next topic. Okay, guys, on to the NFL from the weekend. We're into week 4. Actually, we're into week 5 of the NFL season now. Geez, it goes quick. Look, I love my NFL. I was at the Super Bowl last year. I did it. I've been to the Super Bowl, and I was in Vegas. How good. And the Kansas City Chiefs were phenomenal, despite the fact that everyone there was a San Francisco fan. That was incredible to see. But to see Patrick Mahomes live, that's something I'm going to hold to the day I'm in the ground. And that was just a magnificent experience. I love my NFL. So in this podcast, what I'll do is I'll just go over the weekend scores. Obviously, I'm not going to put as much discussion into that until the regular season is over, until the rugby league season is over, being in Australia and being my number one sport. But with the grand final ending the season this week, I'm going to put a lot more attention into the American sports because that's a real passion of mine. So the Cowboys and the Giants, Cowboys 20 points to 15. Saints got up against Falcons got up against the Saints 26-24. Bengals and the Panthers 34-24. Well done to the Bengals getting their first win of the season. Rams and the Bears. This was an entertaining game to watch. The Rams, they're struggling with some injuries, but they don't seem to go away. Once they get their crew back, I think they're going to be a team to watch. Whether they get them back in time, who knows? 24 points to 18. 2-2 for the Bears, Caleb Williams. I'm still undecided about how well he's going, but look, he's a rookie. You've got to give him something. 2-2 is a good start for the Chicago Bears, who pretty much are used to losing over the last few years. The game of the week, Vikings 31, Packers 29, and we're going to tap into that game as the main topic of conversation here, but what a game that was. The Texans 24-20, they've had a decent start. The Texans, they got spanked last week against the Vikings, who are 4-0. They're flying. But they responded. Jags, geez, 9-4. They're in trouble. Trevor Lawrence, mate, what are you doing, champ? My Steelers. Wow. My Steelers. 27-24, lost to the Colts. First loss of the year. Look, we haven't seen Russell Wilson yet. Justin Fields is doing a pretty good job. I've got big doubts on their offense. I still believe that everything revolves around J.J. Watt and that incredible defense that they have. And I don't know, they blame Matt Cameron for a lot of the they blamed Matt Canada for a lot of the stuff that went wrong last year. But having said that, I don't know. I just don't like what I see from their offense. But they're 3-1. They're leading the division comfortably at the moment. So go the terrible towels. Hopefully they can hang on there and get better. Broncos 10-9 against the Jets. Not exactly the most exciting game, but the Broncos, I don't know. The Broncos defensively, they're starting to have that look about them. There's not much going on with Bo Nix at quarterback. He's just managing at the moment. But the Broncos defensively, They got that look about them again. Look, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to get anywhere close with Bo Nix at quarterback. But at the moment, he's doing all right. But, Bo Nix, he's beaten Aaron Rodgers technically now, so good luck to him. The Eagles, 33-16, they got belted against Baker and the Buccaneers. I've got huge doubts on the Eagles. I'll tap into that in a moment. 42-14 the Commanders. You talk about who the number one pick should have been. Well, Jaden Daniels is starting to make a case that he definitely should have been the number one pick. Caleb Williams is nowhere near Jaden Daniels at the moment. 49ers, yeah, good win. 30 points to 13 over the Patriots. Patriots, well, there's long season coming up. Chiefs and Chargers, this is always a classic. They play their divisional rivals. Chiefs, they're down 10-0 early, and you're just sitting there going, they're going to get out of this. They always do. And they won 17-10. They're a great team, the Chiefs. And, the thing about the Chiefs is they continue to start the seasons. They don't show too many of the aces. They don't really get Travis Kelce that involved. He had his best game on the weekend. He actually made more yards in this game than he had the entirety of the first 3 weeks. But the Chiefs, they don't like to show their aces too early in the season. But this time, they're actually 4-0. So not really doing that much. There was a fantastic play. If you haven't watched it, Patrick Mahomes throwing to Xavier Worthy. That is incredibly scary for opponents. If Patrick Mahomes with that arm can throw to the quickest bloke in the game, and Xavier Worthy at the moment, he's the quickest player in the NFL. He's got the quickest combine of all time. But that touchdown they scored, it's just, mate, get open, I'm going to throw you the ball. There's no way you can defend it. No way you can defend it. And they're not going to pull it out all the time. But when they need it, if they can pull that out of their trick bag, they're just going to be a much more dangerous team, even from last year. Now, Rashid Rice, I'm hearing, may have torn his ACL. That's a big loss, but it just means that Xavier Worthy is going to get a lot more time on the field. And the Chiefs, look, it doesn't matter what they do. They figure it out. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, they will figure it out. I think they're going to look good for 3 straight. However, the team that's going to be coming up, that could be a worry. So, the Raiders, 20 points to 16 over the Browns. Not much going on there. Dolphins, Titans 31-12. Seahawks and Lions. First loss of the season for the Seahawks. The Lions, they're a genuine threat to the title. That was a highly entertaining game. I highly recommend it. But the Ravens, 35-10 over the Bills. Bills previously undefeated. The Ravens have had a 2-2 start, but can Lamar win a title? Well, they've just put Derrick Henry at running back, and they haven't really seen anything like it. He just ran through the Bills like it was nothing. That was incredible. Is that enough to win a Super Bowl? Oh, theoretically, you put Derrick Henry in that game last year in the AFC Championship game, maybe they get the job done. He's that good a running back. But that was scary. The AFC is on high alert at the moment. The NFC is a real interesting one because the Seahawks have had a good start. Detroit, they're a genuine chance. But I think some of the teams that I think a lot of people assume would have been very strong. San Francisco 49ers, look, we'll wait till McCaffrey comes back. You have to reserve judgment there. But they're 2-2. They're not looking all that dominant. But the big one is the Eagles. There was so much talk about the Eagles in the offseason. And, I was a little bit hesitant because I think losing someone of Jason Kelce's experience and leadership, that's almost impossible to replicate. But they have bought a lot of players. Obviously, Saquon Barkley's gone there as a running back. But Saquon Barkley's not Derrick Henry. If they got Derrick Henry, we might have been having a different discussion. But the Eagles are 2-2. They were very unconvincing in both wins, and their losses have been pretty poor. Now, credit to the Bucs. The 3-1. Baker is a much maligned quarterback. But you just want to keep an eye on the Bucs. They've got some good receivers, obviously with Mike Evans. They've got some really good players. So you want to be careful about writing them off too early. Now, the game I want to speak about, this Vikings-Packers game. Unfortunately, I was watching on Game Pass and I was watching the Pittsburgh Steelers, as I do. I watched the 40 minutes. DAZN gives you the opportunity in Game Pass to watch the game in a 40 minutes, which essentially just means they just cut out all the breaks. So you're watching the entire game. You're watching every play in a condensed 40 minutes. But the scoreline was the Vikings 31, Packers 29. Sounds like a great game. I was not prepared for how the game was going to unfold. The Vikings got out for a 20-annual lead, and Packers came all the way back and almost got it done. These are two real ferocious competitors in the NFC. I think both of them are serious contenders. But the Vikings, look, they're 4-0. I'm just looking at the reports here, just doing some of the numbers. Sam Darnold, where did Sam Darnold come from? Look, much maligned, similar to Baker Mayfield. He was written off at the Jets, but completion is 20 from 28, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Look, that happens, but that is a phenomenal stat line, and it's different to Bo Nix. He is not game managing. He is slinging the football. They absolutely towed up. Who did they play last week? I've gone absolutely blank. I'm sorry, but they absolutely towed up their opposition last week. The Houston Texans. Sorry, I went blank there. Absolutely towed them up. Sam Darnold, he's just playing with no fear at the moment. This is a real dangerous team because they're okay defensively, but when you've got Jefferson in the receiving core and Sam Darnold, who looks like he's got a chip on his shoulder, looking to prove a lot of people wrong. You see some of his clips where he's yelling at people, you shouldn't have bagged me, this and that, you chose the wrong person. I don't think anyone's really slitting their wrists over Kirk Cousins leaving over in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins is a very overrated and a very overpaid quarterback. He can play. I'm not saying he can't play, but for what he gets paid, he's not worth it. And they seem to be getting a lot more productivity out of Sam Darnold. Just got to watch the Minnesota Vikings. Look, they're 4-0, reserve judgment for another month. If they're at 8-0, then we have to start talking about them being a contender. But I think the cream's going to start rising to the top soon in the NFC. The Cowboys, I don't know how much cream is there, but the Cowboys, they're going okay. They're trailing along there. I think they've made a mistake with Dak Prescott with that signature, but they may have felt like they had no choice. I would have just personally not worried about his salary and just tried to upgrade in the draft. But look, they've given Dak his paycheck. We'll see what happens there. Look, I'm not convinced that was the right decision, but nevertheless, it is what it is. In terms of next week's games, I'm just checking them out here. So Tampa Bay, Atlanta, New York Jets, Minnesota. That'll be an interesting game, but it's at Minnesota. Minnesota probably go to 5-0 there. Carolina, Chicago, Baltimore, Cincinnati. That's a really big one. That's a divisional rival. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be loving that one. Someone's either going to be 2-3 or 1-4. But it's in Cincinnati, so I would love to see that one. I think that's the game. Despite the fact I'm a Pittsburgh fan, that'll be the game I'll be watching for this weekend, or at least live. Buffalo, Houston, another good one. 2 teams at 3-1. That sounds good. Indiana, Jacks. See you later. Miami, New England, don't even bother. Cleveland, Washington. That's an interesting game. Cleveland, 1-3. They wouldn't want to be dropping another one, but can Washington continue? Can Jaden Daniels continue this route that he's on? Not too sure. We'll see how we go. And you've got the Raiders and the Denver Broncos, Arizona, San Francisco, Green Bay, and the Rams. Really good weekend. Enjoy your NFL, and we'll talk about it on the next episode. Last topic of the day, English Premier League. Now, the reason I'm discussing the English Premier League, for being from Australia, the English Premier League, by far and away, without a shadow of a doubt, is the dominant league in the world. Way more than the A-League. A-League doesn't even rate a mention. La Liga is pretty big. Serie A, being Italian, I love my Serie A. I love my Juventus. But the Premier League is the dominant thing. So we'll talk about the Serie A and La Liga as the seasons gets on and the games become bigger and more important. Certainly going to have a lot of discussion regarding the Champions League, which is the best league in the world. But the Premier League, look, it started. We're into match day 6 now, so it's going good. It's highly entertaining. Go over some scores. Newcastle, Man City 1-1. Great game. St James Park, always an enemy for anyone. If they go there, they're a tough team to beat. Chelsea 4-2. Extraordinary game. All goals scored in the first half. Cole Palmer, all 4 goals for Chelsea. I don't think it's happened before. I'm pretty sure I read that was the first time in Premier League history. That was incredible to watch, to see that. And then the second half just sort of fizzled out into nothing. I don't quite know what happened there. But 4-2 at halftime, 4-2 at full time. Chelsea not going too bad. Brentford, watch out Brentford. Brentford 1-1 with West Ham, but they've had a pretty decent start, Brentford. Everton, 2-1 Crystal Palace. Arsenal 4-2 against Leicester City. That was a really good performance by Arsenal. It got back to 2-2 that game. That was getting really interesting. Arsenal got out of 2-0. Leicester City came back, made it 2-2. They're able to finish them off. That's a sign of a good team. I think Arsenal are a shot at the title this year for sure. Liverpool 2-1 against the Wolves. A little bit lucky Liverpool, but they still remain top. Ipswich Town Aston Villa with a 2-2 draw. Fulham 1-0 over Nottingham Forest. 3-1 Bournemouth over Southampton. Tottenham 3-0. Man United, what is going on over there at Man United? Mate, can they get Sir Alex Ferguson back? Seriously, were they ever good without him? I don't know what's going on at Man United. There's just so many problems. They did have a red card. That was hard. But Silva, look, that was hard, Bernardo Silva. But 3-0, you got to be joking. I don't know what's going on there, but congratulations to Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou, the Aussies. The ladder at the moment, I think Liverpool's still up top. Last time I checked it, unless something dramatic's happened. Liverpool first, Man City second, Arsenal. I thought Arsenal were actually second. Anyway, Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, there's your top four. Then you get to Aston Villa, Fulham, Newcastle, Tottenham. They're your contenders for the UEFA Cup. Man United, 13th. Mate, they're struggling. They're absolutely struggling. So, some things that I've seen early on. Look, Erling Haaland had a sensational start in the Premier League. We're going to talk later about where he sits in the GOAT conversation about strikers, because I'm not sure I've ever seen a pure striker that just gets in the box and can just score. He gets near the ball and he just scores. He's just a brute. But having said that, I'm happy to hear from anyone at Mike at globalsportfanatics.com. I'm happy to have that debate. If anyone wants to raise a topic in regards to who the greatest strikers, I'm anticipating a lot of people to tell me players like both Ronaldo's, but particularly R9. I've had this debate with a friend of mine. He loves R9, and if I mention Haaland, he just yells at me. But they're different style of players. But that's something that if you want to start a discussion regarding the greatest strikers of all time, hit me up, Mike at globalsportfanatics.com or any of my social media pages. I think he's had a tremendous start. He's scoring hat-tricks at will. He couldn't get the goal against Newcastle. He had some chances. He'll be disappointed he missed them, but it's just funny. If he misses a goal, you think he's had a bad game. It's not easy to score in the Premier League, but he's a freak. Liverpool's had a decent start. Arsenal look good. Chelsea, well done coming fourth. I like their attack. Defensively, they're conceding a lot of goals. But I think Chelsea, particularly at home, they've scored 6 goals at home in one game this year. So they're a serious threat to the title. There's certainly a massive chance for the Champions League when you factor in that the next best team really is Aston Villa, who, by the way, are playing really, really well. Are they a Champions League contender? Look, I'm not really sure. I think cream rises to the top. Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, they're your 4 Champions League teams. And of course, we don't really know what's going to happen with Man City and the investigation. Is that something that's going to impact this season? I hope not, because I just like seeing good football, to be fair. The big talking point for me so far in the first 6 weeks, I've got a real bone to pick with this. But Pep Guardiola, he's a great manager. We all understand he's a great manager. I have a huge problem with this plague that he seems to have put over the global sport. Everyone plays like Pep Guardiola's system now. Everyone. And it is starting to annoy the living bejesus out of me. I understand why he's doing it. Take the ball, pass the ball, take the ball, pass the ball, high possession, never lose the ball. I understand that. But the thing is that everyone is trying to copy him. And they're just not doing it as well, which is actually playing into Man City's hands. And the best example of anyone, look, I'm happy to share this opinion with anyone, and if anyone wants to debate me, that's fine, but I feel like every game I've watched this year in the Premier League, at some point, this obsession with building from the back, whether it's through your back 2 defenders or your goalkeeper, just clear the ball. Just get the ball at the other end of the field, a rebound can put someone on side, and then anything can happen from that point. Sometimes you just got to play for a little bit of luck and see where the ball bounces. The ball can do anything on the football pitch. But this obsession with building from the back, how many goals have we seen already? Or how many near misses have we already seen from goalkeepers? They get the ball, instead of clearing it, no, they're going to pass it to someone who's not looking, or they've got their back turned and someone sneaks in, and next thing you know, the ball's in the back of the net, or someone almost hits them. It seems to be happening every game. It's really infuriating. Just get rid of the ball. But when it really hit home, being an Italian fan, Italian football has always been about the counter-attack. It's always been about, you've got your 2 central defenders on a 4-4-2 formation, and you have your fullbacks that overlap. And essentially, the Italians will sit back, and then they'll just push the ball up, and they'll put it long, and they try to take advantage of the quick counter. They'll cross it in and try to sneak goals. Italian football, we all know. Win 1-0, that's all you need, right? It also can backfire and you can concede a goal late. But having said that, when you put up the bus, anything can happen. But the point is, when I watched the Italians try to defend their title in Euro, I was so annoyed watching them play. They've adapted the Pep Guardiola. Now, I understand that, Napoli did really well in winning a title and they've taken the same coach. I get all that. But with all due respect, why are you playing like Pep Guardiola? They just take the ball, pass the ball, take the ball, pass the ball, but no one's actually doing anything. No one's getting into the box. No one's penetrating. No one's actually having a shot, and no one is taking on one-on-one situations. They're not getting into isolation and actually using ball skills to try to get around defenders. It's just not happening anymore. It's just pass and pass and pass and pass. What are we doing to the future of the game if we're just going to dilute what you're supposed to do on the ball. Everyone is starting to coach this same mentality. It's becoming boring. I love football, soccer in Australia, but I love football. Being Italian heritage, it's part of my DNA. I just don't want to see some of these players, the Messis, the Ronaldos, these players, they're not going to exist anymore. No one is going to come through the system and actually do anything if we're all just going to play the Pep Guardiola system. Take the ball, pass the ball, retain possession. Take the ball, pass the ball, retain possession. Take the ball, pass the ball, retain. It's boring, guys. Start coming up with your own strategies. Pep Guardiola, good luck. You've done your job. You're a great manager. Now we need someone to combat that and actually start managing in a different way. And let's start getting some counter-attack football going on. Let's start getting some isolations going. Let's start encouraging kids to learn how to dribble, step overs, and try to become the great players that they can be. I want to see it. Messi's about to retire. Where's the next one? I want to see who the next one is. And if anyone is just passing the ball between each other, we're not going to see it. If you want to have, this is the right way to play, that's fine if you want to win titles. But sometimes it's about who are the best players that we want to watch. It's still entertainment at the end of the day. Okay? Listen, that's my first episode. Any questions you want to do, hit me up at mike@globalsportfanatics.com. Hit me up on any of my socials. If you guys have any questions regarding today's podcast, please hit me up at mike@globalsportfanatics.com. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.